first time, it was rolling cigarettes using tally-ho papers, a handful of mouldy grain twisted into a cigarette. They look a bit funny.
The Parkinsonia dieback workshops in the Desert Channels region, and not just in Desert Channels, we're going down into the southwest and we're going to do workshops up in the Southern Gulf as well.
I just think it's a good thing for everyone to get together, and everyone's keen to have a go at getting rid of it. It needs to be done.
What you look for are weaknesses in the plant or times of year or seasons where you can attack it. So that's the benefit of knowing the ecology of a weed.
This series of workshops have been funded by a grant from Meat and Livestock Australia, and so we're pretty thankful to them. They thought it was a really good idea to run these workshops through Queensland, and this is the second one of the series of 5 that we've got planned.
They're all trial sites, so the idea is to try this dieback in these areas and hopefully see that it works, and that way it'll go a long way towards the control of Parkinsonia in the Desert Channels region for us anyway.
What we're going to do today, the practical side of the activity is to talk to you about how Parkinsonia dieback works, how we can use it as part of an integrated weed management strategy, but we're also going to set up 1 or 2 trial sites here on Eastmere to show you just how the dieback agent can actually be used in the field. We know that it works fairly widely in the Territory, and also in the Pilbara and around Kununurra in that top corner of West Australia, but we're interested in knowing how it works around here as well, and all the other places that we're going to go.
As you can see with the green, we've gone from one side of Desert Channels region and we've gone right through to the east coast around Rockhampton and them places. So we've drawn a large amount of people with the interest of controlling Parkinsonia. So that's just sort of giving you an idea too on where the Parkinsonia is spread, and if these people are coming in, they must have Parkinsonia. So,
okay, it comes from the Americas, right from Texas, Arizona, right through Central America into northern South America. It's naturalised right throughout the world, places like India, Greece, South Africa, but its worst weediness is actually in Australia. For some reason, it's just the right climate and conditions. It just loves Australia. If you've got a little bit of Parkinsonia, just get rid of it. Don't play with it, just get rid of it, and you might work on a paddock by paddock basis or something like that. If you've got a lot of Parkinsonia, then you need to look at an integrated control plan. You need to consider the range of options. It's not the same solution for everybody. You might have a dozer, so dozer might be a more realistic option for you. If you don't have the machinery, then you might have to, the cost of getting machinery in might be too much, so you look for herbicide options. So best practice is about getting individual solutions to your individual properties.
The fungus has actually got to percolate through the soil in water, and depending on what the soil characteristics are, if it's clay type soil, it'll move fairly slowly. If it's open soil, more quickly. But one site where we've been studying it, where it's been moving on a natural infection, it seems to move about 1 metre per year. But what happens is, if an infected tree is in a clump, it'll actually jump off the roots of one tree onto another. And so what we've actually found is, in one place where we have done some inoculations, after it's taken 2 years to establish, it begins to then move to neighbouring trees. Moving from clump to clump might be dependent on flooding, but we don't know enough about that. So anyway, I'll start at the very beginning. So if you're ready for a bedtime story. Well, we first started working on Parkinsonia dieback in 2004. That came about, I had contact was made from Colleen Westover, who was the the project officer with Barkly Landcare in the Northern Territory. She'd noticed dieback happening in Parkinsonia, killing big numbers of Parkinsonia plants on some of the stations she was working at, and particularly Newcastle Water Station was one of those that she was looking at. And she asked around the territory if anyone knew anything about dieback, but more importantly, could this be used as a management tool? And the answer she got was no, we don't know anything about this, and more importantly, no, we don't have anyone who's got any time to look at this situation. Anyway, through ringing around and contacting various people, eventually Colleen got on to me at the University of Queensland, and I've had a little bit to do with extension. I work mainly with vegetable crops and tree crops, horticultural tree crops, but I really hadn't had a lot to do with pastoral industries. But I never knocked back an opportunity to look at something new, so I told Colleen I'd give her a bit of a hand. So she told me a bit about the story, sent me some photos, and I said, well, can you send me a couple of bits of dead parky? And so she did that. She got out there with a handsaw and cut a few bits and pieces of some parky trees and sent them to me in the mail. So I'm a plant pathologist, which means I actually deal with plant diseases, and so we did a bit of a look-see, and sure enough, what we actually found in those parky stems, there were some fungi in there. Now, just because a wood's got fungus in it doesn't necessarily mean that's what killed it, because you leave anything crook long enough and all sorts of things will grow in there. But we did some isolations and we got a couple of interesting fungi out of that, and so I told that to Colleen. We tried to identify them, and she said, well, what can we do with this? Can we actually use these agents to kill trees? And I said, well, that's a fair question. Let's look at that. We grew up our little beasties, and we flew to the territory. We were introduced to the Barkly tablelands, and we spent a couple of days scrabbling around, looking at sick trees out there, but more importantly, trying to figure ways to introduce the fungi into them. And we took a cordless drill and a couple of rough cultures that we grew and made holes in them and poured stuff in there and did all sorts of things, but nothing really worked. Anyway, so we went back and to the lab, and on the way back on the plane we thought, well, yeah, this was a bit of a rough go, but let's think about this. These are fungi. Fungi will grow on a lot of different things, but one thing you're probably all aware of is that grain does actually go mouldy if you let it go wet, and we worked out that if we used a grain as a food source, we might be able to grow this fungus. The first time it was rolling cigarettes using tally-ho papers, a handful of mouldy grain twisted into a cigarette. We started then sticking those into trees, so drilling holes in trees, sticking these cigarettes full of mouldy grain in, and we figured we might seal the hole, and so we wrapped a bit of gaffer tape around the tree 2 or 3 times and let it go. When we came back 6 months later, we found that the trees were looking a bit crook, and in some cases we were able to kill trees within about 2 years. We've got another formulation 1 or 2 steps beyond that, where we've actually got it in a capsule, so it looks a little bit like an oversized Panadol. It doesn't cure your headaches, but it'll certainly give the tree a headache. We did some more work in the glass house and in the lab, and we worked out that if you squirt the hole with a bit of silicone sealant, you know, the old bathroom type, if we seal the hole and make it airtight after we've inoculated, we improve the kill rate, and we found that by doing that we actually get a much quicker kill. It reduces the time to tree death by about 50%, so it's a lot quicker, but also more of the trees that we inoculate actually get crook, and very few escape. So it's taken us 5 years to get to that level. I mean, it's been about a year and a bit since we got to that stage, and so what we've now got is what we think is the best process to our capability of killing trees. developed this into a kit which we can use, and what we'd like you to do is to actually set up your own trials. The manual here covers all the details step by step how to do it. It's so you actually get a chance to run a research project. This book is designed for you to take out in the field, to do your recording, and then when you get out there and think, now what was it I was supposed to do again, you flick through and it's all there. So it's all in the one manual. So there's a tape measure tossed in there, so we do a circumference around the stem and we write that down. So that goes in our data sheet. So that was step 3. Step 4 was putting in a capsule. So you open the envelope, you only open one of these at a time, so you do your first 10, then you move on to the next. You put a capsule in the hole and then you seal it off. And to seal it off, so that's pages 22, 21, 22. You pop it in the hole and then you seal it off with a squirt of silicone.
Very delicate.
Is that deep enough?
Yeah, so it's better.
The ratings that you do afterwards should only take you about 20 minutes. So that's all we're asking, that every 6 months beyond that setup, you spend about 20 minutes assessing that trial. Bearing in mind you've got to go there, and if you've got it on a place that's a bit sort of distant on the station, well, you might want to tie it into something that you're doing there.
If you need advice with your weed management plan, then talk to people like Ron from Desert Channels Queensland. They're happy to help with planning. Or maybe some of your Shire rural lands officers are happy to help as well. So get professional advice if you're going to start a major control program.
As a land care facilitator, Al, I see this as a great thing for us too, because it's all about networking as well. So we're bringing new people in for Desert Channels, new, if we want to set up new projects and things like that. So these people are getting to know us. There's probably people here today that haven't heard of us before, and this is one way of getting our message out there. And instead of 50 projects next round, we might have 60 or 70, maybe 80 projects, sort of thing. So it's building our network up all the time. So
I think graziers and landholders thought, well, nobody, because weeds weren't classified as an environmental issue, and I think everyone thought, well, if nobody else cares, why do we? And they were saying you've got to save Lake Eyre and you've got to save the Gulf, and we'd say, well, you save it, we've got to feed ourselves. But I think now it's taken that long, which is nearly 20 years, and I think the community and the government and people now are starting to think, hey, somebody does care and maybe we should get together and do this sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it's a big job. I've been doing a lot of cut stump, probably killed 20,000 trees and toarding them. I'm just trying to work my way down and get it in one patch down the slake, get in where it's real thick. Yeah, I've got a lot of hope riding on it, but see how it goes, I suppose.